evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to Committee as a Whole for Human Resources and Education on June 11th, 2020. Ms. Coakley, could I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mrs. Heinz? Here. Mr. Derman?
Here.
Mr. Loop?
Here.
Mr. Harrell?
Here.
Mr. Nation?
Here.
Mrs. Richardson? Mr. Winkler?
Here.
Mrs. Drucker? Mr. Bentoncourt?
Here.
Mrs. Lamy? Mr. Hersey?
Here.
Mr. Bro?
Here.
Mr. Kuzan?
Here.
Mrs. Page?
Present. Please stand and join us for the invocation led by Ms. Heights.
Heavenly Father, we ask that you be with us this evening as we gather. We know that we're in uncertain times, and we ask that you give us the peace that only you can provide. Further, we ask that you be with us in the decisions we make. Please guide us in those. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comments. Christy, do we have anyone for 5 minutes for public comments? Thank you. Do we have anyone for 3 minutes? Cindy Rester. Hi, welcome. Do come to the podium, please. Thank you.
My name is Cindy Rester from Lacombe. I know you all know me. Haven't been here in a while, but I'm back. Tonight I wanted to just come and say a few words about some things that happened during the pandemic to do with the grab-and-go meals. I wanted to commend the staff, Mr. Foles. I chatted with Mr. Foles probably in the first week, and he agreed to think out the box, had meals delivered to areas that could not come to the locations, and I thought it was important that we call out those people and thank them for stepping out the box. Shelter Richardson stepped up. Matthew Green, I know they delivered meals. A lot of people did, and I thought people should say thank you. Okay? That's it.
All right, thank you. That's very, very nice. And we sure do appreciate everyone, Matt and Shelta and everybody else. Jenny, everybody that that helped with the meals. Very, 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 very great that they did that. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of minutes for committee as a whole held on March 5th, 2020. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Heights. Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Kuzan. Do we have any questions from the board regarding the minutes? Do we have any questions from the public? Everyone vote, please. All right, we have 13 yays. Next, Human Resources. Mr. Jabia, do you have anything from Human Resources?
Nothing tonight, Ms. Page. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Curriculum. Curriculum and Instruction Update. Ms. Lemaine, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum.
Good evening. Ms. Page, Superintendent Foles, board members. Tonight, I would like to bring to you an update for curriculum and instruction. As always, I would like to start out with our living statements. Every child, every day. Is it best for kids? And learning to last a lifetime. These living statements certainly exemplify our commitment to our community and to our students. We're currently working on the framework of a safe start to the to school in the fall of 2020. The state is expected to release guidance for schools within the next couple of weeks. Our number one goal, of course, is maintaining a safe and healthy school environment for our school communities. Our goals also include bridging any missed learning for our students and creating a sustainable instructional model. Our instructional model, of course, includes the written, the taught, and the assessed curriculum. Our written curriculum is our guaranteed curriculum that's written for teachers. And remember, we always discuss that it's important for our teachers to adapt and supplement the lessons that are within the curriculum. And now, more so than ever, they'll need to do that. In looking at the learning plan, we've done a great deal of work in looking at a pathway forward during the next school year. And we know with developing that learning plan that model must start with the standards. So the plan for the upcoming school year is to take the next year's standards and make sure that the prior year standards are embedded within the next year's standards. For example, when you're thinking about math, if the standard covers ratios, then we would want to make sure that the prior year standard covering ratios is aligned and embedded within those, so that at the beginning of the school year, we're not taking time out to reteach any fourth quarter learning or any other prior learning, but that it's embedded within the standards as they would occur during the school year. So it would be just a natural progression of moving through the curriculum, but making sure that we're addressing any unfinished learning. So along with that, we will also be using an adaptive lesson design with what we call some essential components that we feel like are going to be needed to address those standards. And it's going to be a scaled back design that's like maybe a mini lesson, 15, 20 minutes, that'll give teachers an idea of what core content must be covered during those lessons, and plenty of opportunity for them to adapt and supplement, using their own creativity and including activities that would certainly engage their students. Knowing that, whatever instructional environment might be present, that this is going to be a design that would be adaptive to any instructional environment. Also, too, the next layer is looking at our guaranteed curriculum. And in the past, that guaranteed curriculum it was a teacher curriculum for the teachers to go in and access, to use and plan, and again, the adapting and supplementing. But we are currently working on changing that curriculum to where it is a student curriculum that will live online for students to be able to access. And it would also include that learning plan that's basically like that teacher's lesson plan. And that's that lesson design that I just mentioned in the step prior. So we're basically repurposing our guaranteed curriculum and transforming it from a teacher curriculum to a student curriculum, which we think is going to, enable us to facilitate that learning regardless of the instructional model that will be needed. So in looking at some of the steps that we're also now taking to make sure that we are ready for the upcoming school year, we have provided for our teachers many opportunities for them to engage in virtual professional development. Early on, we realized that we weren't going to be able to continue to do things the way that we had done in the past, and didn't have the opportunity to have them in, face to face. So the next best thing was virtual. And we quickly realized that this was something that we probably should have done a little bit sooner, because the teachers really embraced this opportunity to participate in virtual professional development from home at times that maybe are convenient to them. So the response really has been tremendous. To date, we have had over 3,000 teacher participant instances of teachers, participating in virtual professional development. And that's from like late April until, and scheduled all the way through late July. And we're continually adding to those professional learning opportunities. Some of the professional development that has been offered, we've offered Dibble's 8th, which is a new reading assessment that we'll be implementing in the upcoming school year. Our math curriculum, we adopted the new math curriculum, so we began the training for all of those teachers. And also Chromebook training for many of our teachers, and we're continuing to expand that pool of teachers. We're going to be opening up new sessions of that, as well as some writing training that's upcoming, and we'll also be running a hybrid model of our new teacher induction. Speaking of the math curriculum professional development that we've been conducting virtually, if you'll remember, back in February, we moved forward with a new math curriculum, and we made a commitment at that time that we would make sure that teachers were able to begin that professional development prior to the end of the school year, and that also we would deliver student and teacher materials prior to the end of the school year. Well, March 13th came, and, I have to admit, I was quite concerned that I might not be able to deliver on what we had assured teachers would happen. But I will say that we truly have a tremendous curriculum team that pulled it all together. Our staff did a great job, and we have been able to make sure that the first phases of that professional development has occurred for all grade levels of teachers from K to 12, and that the teacher materials and student materials have been delivered to the schools. So we're really excited about that. Another piece of work that we began prior to school closures was we applied to be our own vendor for mentor teacher training and content leader training. And this is a training that some of our teachers have participated in this past school year, and it's quite expensive. So we had the idea that we could apply to the state to become our own vendor. Our application was approved, and then it had to go before Bessie. And in May, Bessie actually approved for us to be our own vendor for ELA and math content leader training, as well as mentor teacher training. The importance really of the mentor teacher training is now that is required for us to be able to host interns and student teachers, and also those teachers who come in on the alternative certification, pursuing the alternative certification pathway. We're required to assign them mentors. So we have to have mentors in order for us to have, those people in to work with us. And we are actually the first school system in the state to apply for mentor teacher and content leader, training to be our own vendor, and we were approved for all three. So we are really excited about that. And just to kind of let you know, the rationale behind that was we had these teachers who were participating, and we were having to pay these vendors for our teachers to go. And the amount that we spent in the past school year to send teachers to these trainings was a little bit over $150,000. And on top of that, the trainings were in Baton Rouge and New Orleans, so we then had to pay travel. And then our teachers had to travel, which was, not something that they really like to do. So we are really excited that we are going to be able to offer that in district for the upcoming school year. And actually, we're going to begin those training sessions this summer virtually. So, just an opportunity for us to expand that virtual. And to date, we've had 130 teachers apply to be a mentor teacher and to participate in that training, and 70 teachers apply to the content leader. So and those numbers exceed the numbers that we had participating this year. So we're really excited about this program. Other virtual opportunities that we are providing our summer programs virtually, those programs that are essential, like our summer schools. 21st Century has a virtual program going on. Also, our Jumpstart programs for our high school students, those are going to be occurring virtually this summer. So again, trying to continue those things that are essential. We are also continuing to provide support to our students with our STPPS Cares helpline. So this is still posted, and we are still actively working the helpline, and this is providing virtual mental health support for our students and families throughout the summer. In closing, again, I just want to remind you that as soon as we receive that additional guidance from the state in the next couple of weeks, that we are going to continue developing our framework and addressing what our instructional models will have to look like for the upcoming school year once we have that information. So.
Great. Thank you so much. This was outstanding. Do any board members have any questions for Ms. Lemaine? I'm sorry? There you go. Mr. Nation does.
Don't know that thank you, Mrs. Page, and thank you, Mrs. Lemaine. I don't know that I have a question as so much as a compliment and a couple of comments. Again, we cannot say thank you enough to you and to your team for what, curriculum and instruction is hard enough under normal circumstances, but under these past couple of months has been extraordinarily stressful, I know, for you and your team, as well as the teachers in the field. So thank you for all you've done, and hopefully, in my prayer, and I know all our prayers, now that we have a state superintendent in place, and as he begins to get his feet on the ground and gets to work, that the plan will come pretty quickly for what the fall is going to look like. And, just speaking only for myself, I mean, virtual and online learning works for some folks, depending on their age, but it doesn't, at least in my opinion, it doesn't work for little kids. I mean, human beings by nature, we are literally by nature social creatures, so we need to be together. And little kids particularly need, and all of us, but particularly little children need to be together. So I'm hoping that whatever plan comes out from the State Department of Education, will get us back to normal and into a routine where our children are not in virtual environments, So, and last but not least, I appreciate your efforts in getting us set up as our own vendor and saving the taxpayers of this parish some money, and all that you all do to create those efficiencies certainly do go a long way. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Nation. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Winkler?
Yes, Ms. Lemaine, are any other systems going to be able to have their own vendors, or we?
There was one other school system that applied for the mentor teacher vendor, and that was Tangipahoa. So there is one other. I'm sure that once they have seen us doing
That's
this,
great.
that there will be lots more. And I don't know if you noticed on that slide, and I should have pointed it out, all of these are like companies, and some of the same companies that we paid over, $150,000 to, that they're in that list as well. And we just saw this as a great way, for cost avoidance. We could offer it in-house, and certainly, knowing our teachers, we think, do a better job at meeting their needs.
And that's one thing I want to commend you on is you guys go out into the schools and find our teachers. We have good teachers out there that
Absolutely.
are cutting edge, and you use their talents to help each other. So
Right.
Thank you for doing that. And
We
that's
are
great.
really excited that 130 teachers have applied to be mentors, because that means we can host a lot of interns and student teachers and alternative certification teachers and really deepen our talent
Yeah,
pool.
we have
we're
so much
excited.
talent in this, and
Great
thank you
opportunity.
for going out there and finding
That's
that.
good.
Thank you.
Okay, one more. Mr. Kuzan?
I have a question about the assessment of the prior year standards. That's the only concern that I have is, are we gonna be able to get the standards that's required for the prior year up to, for all the students?
Yes, so we'll have those assessments at the beginning of the school year, like we do always with that LEAP 360, and then we do that diagnostic, right at the beginning of the year for the ELA and math. And then we have our dibbles at the early grades, for that early literacy. So we will absolutely have those in place, and the way that we've aligned the standards, the prior year standards are going to be paired up with the next year's standards. So when I'm teaching that concept as a teacher, I see what was required the prior year and make sure that I'm addressing if it's not naturally embedded and there's something extra that I need to include during that lesson, I can do so. But we felt like by us putting it at the same point in the school year as when it's naturally being taught, it's going to be, much more efficient use of our time. And if it's something that's not addressed within that scope and sequence, then we'll make sure that it's added in from the prior year. So we are 100% going to take care of that.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Lemaine, so much. We so appreciate all your
Thank you.
hard work.
Could I say something? I commend you for coming up with this mentor, teacher, and content licensing program. Was there any thought in maybe offering this to the surrounding parishes so that they don't have to go out and get their own licenses? I mean, once you develop everything, it doesn't cost much more, or
Right.
it's not much more effort to bring in other people. We could even charge them some nominal fee.
Right now, for the first year, we're going to have a waiting list, but that's, one of the components that was in our proposal, that we would consider that after the first year, but we didn't, you kind of don't want to jump off in the deep end. We thought that we would go through the first year, and if there's any refinement that we feel like we need to do, that we'll do so. But the other thing is that we had such an overwhelming response. We're going to have a waiting list, and some of those cohorts, we're going to have additional cohorts throughout the year, but some may even have to wait until the next year. But certainly, we plan to open that up in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is that it? Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing further, I declare this meeting adjourned.